Welcome into the Shank and Spence show tonight. It is Thursday night, and we want to welcome everybody into our show. The first topic we're going to be talking about is Brandon Marshall. He is now the new wide receiver for the New York Football Giants. And Matt, holy crap, man, Brandon Marshall.
Yeah, that's a great move for them. You know, you got the big trio with Brandon Marshall and Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard, the three trio with Eli certainly being at the latter part of his career. They're certainly trying to make the moves to be able to make that Super Bowl contender. Certainly the last 3 to 4 years. What do you think about
$6 million? Now, the thing about Brandon Marshall is that he's kind of an alpha dog. I mean, he had that one accusation of sexual assault in New York. He's very outspoken. Remember with Fitzpatrick, he was always kind of like upset what the Jets were doing, even though the Jets are dysfunctional. And then with Jay Cutler, he would always pout. So he's kind of an alpha male, and you're putting him with a kid that is oftentimes not the most mature guy in Odell Beckham Jr., a guy that can fly off the hosel. I don't want this to be another Chicago Bulls situation when you're putting just too many egos in too tight of a space. I don't want this whole thing blowing up. So that's my concern. There's only one football to throw to all these different guys.
Well, I think what you understand is Brandon Marshall's a guy who's been around the NFL for quite some time in Chicago with the Broncos as well. So when you look at perspective with Brandon Marshall, he's been a guy that has had pretty bad quarterback play with guys like Tannehill and Jay Cutler. And when you go to a guy like Eli Manning and a formidable organization like the New York Giants, I think that's a match made in heaven for him. He even said before he wanted to go to a Super Bowl winning championship caliber defense. I think they actually have that with the defense that they have, that they've had with the $200 million defense that they had put together last year with everybody, and having Eli at the helm, a two-time Super Bowl winning MVP quarterback, and somebody who can really mentor that team, especially if he was with them maybe about 8 weeks earlier, that especially the boat trip down to Miami would have been completely a wash. Now, so I think with Brandon Marshall, he could bring such leadership
that
to that
you mentioned the boat trip, because Victor Cruz, I look at Victor Cruz, and if you were going to say to me a year ago, who would you rather have as the leader of Odell Beckham, Victor Cruz or Brandon Marshall, I would tell you I'd rather have Victor Cruz. But Victor Cruz, way too laissez-faire, let the animals run the asylum, Odell Beckham down to Miami. They then lose the playoff game against Green Bay. And I thought that was such an act of immaturity, because even though you just beat the Redskins, it's not like you achieved anything. And for the New York Giants to go on that trip, it just shows that Odell Beckham just doesn't really understand the moment, like how big being in the playoffs is. And even as a fan, I think I cared more than Odell cared. He'd rather get drunk with Justin Bieber, ruin his whole sleep cycle.
Well, I'll tell you,
who cares about winning a regular season game versus the Redskins and getting?
Well, I'll tell you, definitely the culture of the New York Giants has changed, especially from the Bill Parcells era all the way up to, especially the Coughlin era, has always been, being 10 minutes early to meetings, not going out late.
You can't even urinate during practice. You get fined.
I know, that's right. Something like that was a Tom Coughlin way of life. But once they change over to Ben McAdoo, the culture changes, and a lot of the guys, like you even said, perfectly said, laissez-faire. A lot of people can do what they want, when they want, and how they wanted. And I just think that Eli Manning is kind of that old grandpa in the room, doesn't want to mentor all these guys anymore. He's been there, done that. And
he looks like he's honestly like a 60-year-old dude. It looks like he's like a college professor, and he has like Sterling and Tavares and Odell as his pupils, and it's kind of a real disconnect, because Eli at night, he goes home to his suburban New Jersey house. His wife will play mahjong, he'll play golf, and then Odell Beckham's out in New York like dancing with like Drake's friends, and it's like a whole nother world for Eli to try to connect.
And also with the Brandon Marshall agreement going to New York, again, especially kind of going from the Jets to the Giants, he can certainly do the great TV deals that he has with a lot. He does the Showtime CBS.
Inside the NFL.
So he didn't want to leave New York. He didn't want to leave his family, go to new places. But he certainly had a fresh interest from all these different coaches. and teams around the NFL, but he chose to stay in New York for the market, and I think it's a perfect fit.
Let's look at the positives. Brandon Marshall on the field, he's a physical talent. He's 6'5". Now he does come with baggage. He demands the rock a lot. His personality is very off and on. Calm wouldn't be the word I would use to describe Brandon Marshall. I kind of think he's been selfish throughout his career, oftentimes immature, very outspoken, not going to say the politically correct thing. He has divided locker rooms before. That's what Brandon Marshall does. And immediately when this trade when this signing happened, I thought, boy, Odell Beckham, Brandon Marshall, too many alpha males trying to get one football, and this whole thing could splatter kind of like Rayshawn Rondo and Dwayne Wade and teams like that.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of it, you can get a guy like Brandon Marshall, who's a 6'2", 6'3" talent, somebody they can target in the red zone, being able to go over the top. Odell Beckham's not really that type of guy, that deep threat. He's not really that tall. He's only about 5'11". So being able to have that big target, especially in big red zone, because Giants are really poor last year in the red zone, and it's important to have being able to transition and be able to get that Plaxico burst type of receiver like they had back in 2007.
I was going to mention that.
It's something that the Giants desperately needed.
Throwing a fade route, like 15-yard fade routes. Larry Donnell is gone. You have Will Tye, who's on the smaller side. Jarrell Adams, I don't think he's going to really go into that role. You have Tavares that can run. Sterling's a guy in the slot that can catch touchdowns. From a football standpoint, it's only $6 million. The reason why I think that this is a good decision is if the Giants had a young quarterback, like say they had Carson Wentz, say that they had Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota. If Marcus Mariota and the Titans had Odell Beckham and Brandon Marshall in one locker room, it could be a disaster for the development of Marcus Mariota. But for Eli Manning, he's 36 years old. You got to go all in right now. In 3 years, Eli is done. Your window is over. So there's a you have to admit, Shanko, there's a chance that in New York, the biggest media town in the world, that they're going to be under a microscope, Odell and Brandon Marshall. Odell's a guy who punches walls in Lambeau Field, has this whole kicking net saga. He's not exactly the most mature and mellow guy, and now you're pairing him with Brandon Marshall, but so there is a negative, but the point is, who really gives a crap right now? Because Eli only has 3 years. Let's just swing for the freaking fences right now, right? What do we have to lose at this stage?
I agree.
That's how I look at it.
Giants right now are in a win-now situation. They need to start, getting these draft picks. They got to start targeting the offensive line in the draft. I'd love to be able to get like a Ramczyk out of Wisconsin, a really great offensive tackle. They desperately need offensive line help. We'll definitely address that in a future video, so stay tuned for that.
Listen, I'm excited about this, but this is also a test for Odell and Ben McAdoo. Because Ben McAdoo, I think he messed up last year by letting these guys go to Miami. I think he's too much of a player's coach. I don't think he has that great leadership quality about him. Now he has Marshall. He has all the pieces on offense. Show your worth, Ben McAdoo. Actually, let's have some offense this year. And for Ben McAdoo, Matt, if Ben McAdoo cannot control this team and this team falls apart, guess what? Mara and the Tishes, you get Ben McAdoo and you send him out the door. It's a great test for Ben McAdoo. Because can he handle an NFL locker room? Because now you got a heck of a challenge.
It's a new season. Let's have some fun. 2017, baby. That's where
we are going to have. It's going to be a fun year, that's for sure. And we got more segments coming up next on Rover Sports or on Shank and Spence as well. We're going to be talking about Alshon Jeffrey, other free agent signings right here. So keep it locked. Thank you.